And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by some awesome colleagues here. My name is Tim, and joining me today are Chris and Alice. And we're here to talk about teaching or challenges with teaching math remotely. It's a big issue, big thing going on here.
Well, I just noticed is recently it's just kind of the dominoes are falling. Like people are like, I think we're doing face-to-face, then all of a sudden we're not. And so I'm freaking out. Like, how do you just, in a couple of weeks we start school different than we thought?
Yeah, it almost feels like it did back in March when everybody said, oh, next week you're going to teach online for at least 6 weeks, if we all remember that. But at least we have a little more time to plan and a little more experience under our belts. And fortunately, there's a few people out there who've been thinking a lot about this, and we can, share some good ideas. And I think that's the plan of these conversations, right?
And for many teachers, it feels just as stressful now, like you said, as it did back in March when, we're home and what do we do? And like kids are home and now I'm teaching from home. And it's like, what the, crazy.
More stressful because at least it was the end of the year, right? And you already knew your kids. And stressful is that if you weren't using a platform already and then you're introducing it, all of a sudden, but at least you knew who they were. And now, like, how do I even let them know what platform to join?
Right. Hopefully your district will be really good at communicating. We know how good districts are about communicating. But
it's tough because that's, it's new for them too. So, my motto is lots of grace for everybody.
Absolutely. And I miss the dynamics. I miss the dynamics of teaching and learning full time so much. And I do want to go back, and even in my 2.5 years of independent math ed consulting, it's like just give me the opportunity to just jump in a classroom and work with students for several days in a row. I miss that so much. And again, for teachers that love what they do and are passionate about it, this is very difficult. And it's just we're in this weird time right now where it's like in education and just life in general where it's like we're having a nightmare. We just want to wake up from it. When will this dream end? And it's almost like it's almost like the virtual learning, and whether it's 0%, 50 or 100, we all have to accept the fact that, and it's hard to say, but it's literally like the fact that school won't be back to normal in the fall. It's a loss that we have to grieve. Well,
I think it's defining a new normal. There is no normal, and I think a lot of this is an opportunity. We especially have been talking about for a long time, the differences in mathematics education today with the fact that computers exist versus back when our parents went to school and even when we went to school. Mm-hmm. When I first started teaching, I started teaching in 1999, teaching math, and the department policy is the kids could not use a calculator because what? Are they going to always have a calculator with them? I'm glad that was your reason, because you guys like on cue. That was perfect. And so the fact that technology exists necessitates that we do things differently, like not just because we could, but we should. And so photo math and computers and Geogebra and Desmos and all of these things exist. They're not going to go away. They're only going to get better. Google is an integral part of our lives. And so with this, starting remotely is an opportunity to say, okay, I have no choice but to embrace that I have to do this differently.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of all the apps you did there, it's like, photo math in particular, Demir Sobal, I actually met him at the global gathering at Geogebra last year. And back, I don't know what the stat is now, but like back then it's like 150 million downloads of that app. And you think about the world's population being over 7 billion. 150 million, right? That's 15% of 1/7 of the world's pop. That is huge. That is huge. We can't, it's like, so what photo math and all these apps are, it's like, we have the spinning gear, these gears of like the pulleys and the mold around. All of a sudden we throw one or two monkey wrenches in there. And now the whole machine is like choking up and where we have. And so it's like, now it's like what we need to do. We have to change how we approach things. Right. I mean, it's inevitable. And so what can we do here? Now with the COVID-19 and social and remote learning, that's even another hurdle that we're going to have to jump through and figure out. And of course, in education, many teachers know that it's like whenever these new policies get set in place, it's like, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So it's like, how do we actually take deep breaths and make rational sense and at the same time be effective when working with students?
That's great advice. Like, you know what? It's going to be fine. Worrying doesn't improve things. And
Right.
I think if we just give yourself some grace and some time to figure it out, and if some things don't get covered or done quite in the right way, if you care about your students and you communicate that to me is the most important.
Right. And Ellen Falk on YouTube states, quote, "We teachers need to give ourselves permission to accept the fact that, we won't be able to cover all the content. Students will be able to learn every single thing that's in the curriculum set for this year." I mean, effective teachers know that curriculum is a fluid document anyway, right? But how much more fluid is it going to have to be this year, given our circumstances? And again, some teachers are more embracing of change than others. It's a matter of comfort level, definitely. But but in terms of moving forward, even for the most tech anxious teachers that, we got busy lives, busy schedules, meetings, deadlines, whatever. It's like, great, another new thing, 8 things I got to learn. We're here to help. We're here to be here a half hour every day. This is the first of several discussions at the same half hour time. We're going to just try to help you take the stress off a little bit, just to show you in one particular way how GeoGebra can help you with teaching remotely. And you don't have to be a tech expert to do it either. We're going to show you little teeny things day by day, just for only a half hour, because you don't want to sit through a 4.5 hour webinar. You don't. You're going to fall asleep. But half hour.
Your children.
Yeah, they'll come barging the door down and you'll let me know, get out. But yeah, Chris, we were talking before even this whole thing started. Like, what was the big main idea? Did you want to share that?
Big main idea?
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple of big ideas that we brainstormed, but one thing is you don't have to do it all, right? We've been talking about this. The two of you both said this so far. It's not critical that everything in the curriculum is done this year or ever. In fact, a good chunk of what's in the content standards is not necessarily the most important piece of what you teach in mathematics. So decide what it is that mathematics is. Why do we teach math at all? And what is it that it's good for up front, and find a way to focus on the really important pieces of math and the really important pieces of learning math.
Absolutely.
So
I want to come back to it being an opportunity. I mean, we know that we've done a mile wide and an inch deep. And outside of, when they graduate from high school and they move on, we know it doesn't have necessarily a lot of stickiness in some cases as to the content that we did cover. And so, if we get away from the idea of covering and we take this as an opportunity to say, I can't cover it all anyway, so why not go deeper?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And again, teachers by nature, we use the word covering all the time. It's like, I covered, but it's like it reminds me of a book that I learned when I first started student teaching back in, 2001, the fall of 01. Before that, I read that book by Harry Wong, First Days of School.
Yep.
It's one of the best books I ever read. I love that book. But I remember reading that book, this young teacher, like, whatever, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to change lives, whatever. But the one quote that stood out to me the most, I still remember to this day, is he said somewhere in the book, quote, he said, learning has absolutely nothing, zero, to do with what you as a teacher cover, but it has everything to do with what the student accomplishes. I mean, we may in our minds think we've all had lessons like that where we felt that, even, hey, kids were engaged, it was this, and then we formatively assessed the next day, like, what the, where did that go? We've all had those days. Right. There's no such thing as a perfect lesson. If there's no such thing as a perfect lesson in the real classroom setting, there's definitely going to be imperfection when it comes to virtual remote learning. We just have to expect that of ourselves and, not raise the bar so high, that we can't even reach it. Yes, we want to, aim high, sure, but at the same time, set yourself realistic expectations.
Right, and give yourself the permission to elevate what you mentioned, the idea of formative assessment above summative assessments. In fact, allow those formative things to be the piece that you derive your understanding of what the student knows. Don't be so focused on those end of the unit exams that we all know they're going to be able to cheat on, and or they'll be able to use photo math or Google the answer directly while they're at home learning. Focus on other ways of assessing, and yeah,
playing whack-a-mole is just going to drive you up a wall. So we just have to say, like, how can I really know that they know this away from when you can't control everything?
Yeah.
It's all about control. Teachers, I mean, as a teacher, I can relate too. You know, it's like I had a hard time giving up control. It's like we want to have control, you know, especially, you know, it's like when the administrator's coming down the hall, it's like, oh crap, you know, it gets the things like differently. It's like, you know, and we'll make sure things are just going the way they should, because my informal formal observation, you know what I mean? Where it's like, now I'm really curious as what it's going to look like, what formal informal observation is going to look like in the in this whole new era here coming up this next year. But regardless, but I wanted to say, Alice once asked a question in her Facebook group, remotely teaching geometry. But basically, I love this question. So it doesn't apply to geometry, but think about what you're teaching, the courses that you are assigned to teach, say, this year. So whether it's Algebra 1 or a combo of algebra and geometry, whatever the name of the course is, contemporary mathematics, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Point is, if you could take just five key concepts, what are the most 5 important main ideas? If you could limit it only down to 5 units or 5 whatever, you know what I mean? 5 major themes, five big picture concepts, say in geometry or in Algebra 1, what would those 5 be? These are discussions that, I mean, I think we all agree that it's important to have virtually with your colleagues. And as you plan forward.
Like, if I were to just pick these 5 for the whole year, in a normal circumstance, so I would normally teach, you know, Algebra 1, how many topics do I go deep on?
Yes.
Normally 0. You know, it's every day a new topic. It's new topic Monday, new topic Tuesday, quiz on Wednesday, new topic Thursday, right? And then test, review day and a test, and repeat each unit. And we're not getting the spiraling in there in a really solid way. And in no cases am I increasing the DOK to go deeper, that I really said, do they understand how to apply this? Do they have number sense around it? So if I were to pick 5 things that I'm going to have an ongoing conversation with students about, that we're going to keep coming back to, and I'm going to make that my focus at the end of the year, if there's 5 things that I felt like they knew these 5 things, I feel like I've accomplished more than I normally would have.
Mm-hmm.
So quality being better than quantity in a way. And because it's so funny, because it's like, you know, I've worked with teachers, even teachers I used to teach with. It's like, you know, we have to make sure we do this by the end of the year because they're going to get on the SAT next March. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I understand the logic, but at the same time, just because we teach this one concept in June of, you know, whatever, it means they're going to magically remember it on March of next year. You know, I'm not following. So it's just like, again, not trying to be offensive, but I'm just trying to say that, like, listen, if cutting out this extra unit of if we could just explore more deeply, you know, let students play, let students build. Again, one of the biggest fears, I think, Alice, you can attest to this, and Chris, I'm sure you can too, is that a lot of teachers are afraid to try new technologies with their students because, again, not saying every teacher, but many, I'm just saying because it's just like, well, we feel we have to learn it first before we share it with students. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I understand that logic. I, by nature, can think that way too. But at the same time, I also remember when I was teaching full-time high school, how many students figure out how to hack the firewall and get on sites the school blocked. How many students can watch their favorite band on YouTube as soon as they release their video, and they know the lyrics after 3 listens, you know? And so it's just like, you know, and then IT makes improvements to the firewall, but then kids still figure out a way to get around it again.
Hole is a waste of your time. They will find ways around this. So I'm going to stress less and interact more.
Yes, and in that interaction, give yourself permission to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
If they're able to work around that firewall, there's nothing wrong with learning how to use it yourself, just in case you need to use it sometime. I'm not advocating subversion.
I have done that.
But on occasion.
But I think, you know, just as a mindset, you know, look at the situation that we're in where you have to overnight learn a new platform. Like, you know, school's closed, and now for many schools, like, and now we're going to use Google Classroom, we're going to use Schoology, we're going to use Canvas or whatever, and you weren't using it at all. And you did it. I mean, I don't know all these failure stories where teachers are like, I'm not logging in. I didn't see that happen. They did it. That's the skill, is when you are given a new tech tool that you're able to figure it out. So when we introduce technology to students, to say that the way we introduce technology is I do, we do, you do, I'm going to show you how to do this, then that's what they go out in the world expecting. They go get a job and they're like, okay, who's going to show me how to do this? That's not how the world works. I remember when I first started teaching, I had no teaching credential classes, 0. I graduated from Fresno State with my degree in mathematics in December of 98, and I got hired in January of 99, and I signed up for the teacher credential program in February. And they gave me a key and a lesson plan book and a good luck. And I had to figure out how to take attendance. I mean, everyone else, because I got hired in January, right? Everyone else got, I assumed, some training on how to do the attendance at the beginning of the year. I didn't get that. I had to figure these things out. My friend, she just got a new job and she's working for an attorney who actually has some very old software, and the attorneys are too busy. She had to just, muddle through it, find some YouTube videos, figure out how to use it. And so if we want students to be able to cope in life, our default needs to be, first tell me what you can figure out. And then let me show you the stuff that I needed you to figure out.
So true. And I can go, because for years and years, how we have open house night, parents come in, they do their kids' schedule, whether it's middle school or high school. And for the honors classes, a lot of times it was standing room only. And then for the kids, for classes, where, the home for families, again, every family is, I have a friend who's a therapist and he has a saying, he says, every family is dysfunctional. It's only a matter of degree. Right. And certain degrees of dysfunction come out more in the open than others, depending on, the point is, it's despite whatever that is, whether it's standing room only for honors classes or where it's like a one-on-one conference for other classes, the point is, it's I would always tell parents to say, if you think your son or daughter is a great math student because they can go off and do 1 to 51 out in the corner every day after school, but I mean, we can algorithmically program a robot to do that. I always compare it to the show House, like Fox had Hugh Laurie. Remember Hugh Laurie, the actor, did House? What made the show, for those House fans out there, what made the show so interesting? When I watched it, it's wow, there is a method of solution, that there is a problem whose solution is not that immediately obvious. But what makes the show interesting is the doctors and the residents, they work together to figure out what the heck is wrong with this person. But if all House was okay, take the pill, House is doing clinic and everybody's fine. No, it would get terrible ratings. It'll be gone. So conflict is good. And just because students don't solve problems in 5 or 10 minutes, even virtually,
that's part of the premise of the Matrix.
Yeah, it does. Right.
It's not worth going on if there's not some level of conflict.
Right.
That's
right.
Let me ask a question of the two of you. What do you think about? Do you have some ideas on ways that teachers could give and receive feedback from students, to and from students during this time?
Absolutely. That's where we're going to be going in the next couple of little half-hour tidbits here every weekday from 2 to 2:30 Eastern, 11 to 11:30 Pacific. Alice and I are going to be talking just about that, using Geogebra to literally, Chris, do what you just said. Teach remotely while actually fostering that pedagogy. A lot of teachers are like, what's the best video streaming out? Because again, there are teachers that feel like I got to record all my lectures and put them on YouTube. But let's think about it. Honestly, if we wanted a lecture on solving quadratics, there's probably 8,000,000 of them on YouTube already.
321 Brown has better graphics than you ever will.
Exactly. So
that's what we need is we need to get a list of what are some of the YouTube channels of people putting out the geometry and the algebra. They exist. Who's the hip Hughes of math? You don't know hip Hughes. He does social science and he's got great videos. And I look at this, I'm like, I don't have time to make this. Thank you.
For elementary, I would highly recommend Dwayne Habiger. Dwayne Habiger is in Merced County, California. Yeah, Dwayne is awesome. Dwayne is awesome. Shout out to Dwayne. And again, there's a lot of other things too. We can definitely talk about as these come. But again, if you are tech anxious and you're just nervous about moving forward, rest assured, you know what? A little bit every day, you could put a little tool you could put in your toolbox and use GeoGebra for remote learning. You can do it. And by Friday, we'll show you how you can have students engage in activity while you are watching all their work in real time. No screen sharing required. Okay, it's called Geogebra Classroom. It's their latest release, and that's it. Again, but we're going to talk a lot more because Geogebra has so much to offer. You go to their website now. If you're tech anxious, you see all the things that are there. It can provoke some anxiety for some. I'll admit it. But at the same time, you just, like Alice said, you play, you explore. And again, I'm proud to say that back in 2015, when I made my Geogebra account and started dabbling with it for the first time, I learned so much from my students, and I'm proud of that. You know, that we learned together. And even though that was live in-person classes, you know, you can also learn together virtually as well. So, and again, students don't necessarily need step-by-step procedural instructions as to how to do something, but just if you let them play, you'll be amazed at what they can figure out. Not every student, some need more scaffolding than others, of course. We'll talk differentiation, how to differentiate with technology later on in our half-hour mini-series, but we're excited to do this. So
we're going to be focusing on GeoGebra in particular. There's a lot of really
tons of great stuff,
tools and resources and different things out there. So to keep it simple, if you need one tech tool to start with, how do I start remotely teaching? What's my platform to engage students? How do I do this more than just, hey, here's the book, do these problems? We're saying GeoGebra is a great solution, and we're going to help you see how you can do this. Even if this is not a tool you've been using, we think it's really going to help you get the school year started.
Absolutely. And even though, and just to reiterate what Alice said, even though we're going to focus on GeoGebra these next 2 to 3 weeks, GeoGebra is not the only tool that is out there. I want to make that clear. Listen, I love Desmos just as much as I love GeoGebra. It's just that, you know, as a teacher, I want teachers to have the best of everything. Personally, that's my heart. At the same time, I don't post a lot about it because it conflicts with my employer's interests. So, but the point is, it's like every teacher, you know, can take something and run with it. And Chris, you had mentioned something about quality versus quantity. If you pick one ed tech tool and just learn how to use it. Doesn't have to be advanced, but just use it to engage students. You know, we can do that.
You have to become an expert on all of them,
right?
To become an effective teacher in remote learning situations. If you do one really well, they are all flexible enough to be used in good ways. Even Google Slides and Google Sheets are. I know that. I'm sorry.
Right there, Alice.
That's Alice's jam.
But I mean, those are straightforward applications, and Google Slides is a great place to do interaction. To get back to my question earlier, Alice taught me a great lesson about using Google Slides and private comments and in those areas. What a wonderful way to give feedback to students and get it from students. And if all you learn is how to implement Google Slides in your classroom for remote learning, and I know you guys are going to talk about GeoGebra, so add those two together, you're going to have a grand year. Your students are going to go a lot further than you ever thought they could.
Well, speaking of GeoGebra, speaking of Google Slides, GeoGebra has an app called Geogebra Notes, which Caroline Silver just reminded me of in the YouTube comment there. She said, I use Geogebra Notes as my whiteboard tool and save the notes for my kids to refer back to. Kids can in fact, GeoGebra Notes, you can put so many elements on the screen. Did you know that graspable math is even embedded within GeoGebra Notes, where you can have the functionality of graspable math and GeoGebra all in one platform there. We're going to learn about that later on, tail end of next week, and you see like, oh my gosh, it's that easy to use, and it's a game changer. It really, really is. And you know, I'm excited to do this with Alice, and hopefully Chris can join us when he can.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll share the link with you, Chris. Join in anytime.
Sarah Medina Baker asks, Chris, who is a social science person you recommended on YouTube?
It wasn't me, that was Alice.
Alice, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Hip Hughes. HIPHUG. Yeah, HUGHES.
Yep.
He's awesome.
Hip.
He's got topics on lots of things.
Cool. And just to show you a little bit here, I know we're might end a little bit early. That's okay, but I just let me just share my screen very, very quickly. I didn't get the chance to type this up yet, and I apologize for that in advance. It's been a crazy day, but I did want to let you know that this is what these, in terms of the topics, this is kind of what's coming at least right here. Let me just share. Share app window. Here it is. Again, I apologize for the ugly clarity here, but basically I just took a screenshot of something that I sent to Alice earlier, but these are kind of the topics we're going to look at day by day. So obviously today it's just a very introductory discussion. Like, what are the challenges? Tomorrow we're going to start playing with GeoGebra a little bit. What it is, how can it help empower their teachers, empower their kids to learn math? And you'll see right there, every day we're going to learn a little bit something new with GeoGebra. Again, beginner stuff, taking baby steps, and that's kind of how I'm actually going to type this up and put it in a Google Slides thing, and I'll share it with the rest of the game with all of you tomorrow. But just kind of where we're going to be going, moving forward from here on out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
So what else?
I certainly don't feel pressured to take it to the minute. We're having a chat every day, and if we go a couple over or a couple under, I'm cool with that. I'm also, as you can tell, in my car. I'm in New Mexico, heading over to Texas, and then getting to my new house in Kansas. So I'm excited.
Cool. Awesome. All right, everybody. So I guess that's a wrap. We will see you tomorrow on whatever platform you're watching on, 2 to 2:30 Eastern, 11 to 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Same time every weekday for the next couple of weeks, and we'll just take little steps at a time. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Bye.